in Tripoli, which is where we will find breaking news. Reports say rebel forces have reached the center of the capital and are in control of 90% of Tripoli. The head of Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi's personal security force is reported to have disarmed his unit and surrendered. The International Criminal Court says it can confirm that Gaddafi's son, Saif al-Islam, has been arrested. The rebel council announced it will stop the fighting that's raging around Tripoli if Colonel Gaddafi leaves the country. But in a second audio address, the colonel urged the nation to fight to the end. Eyewitnesses are tweeting that an independence flag has been raised on Tripoli's central mosque. In the rebel stronghold Benghazi, victory celebrations are already underway. At this point, we can now cross to independent journalist Lizzie Phelan in Tripoli to find out what's happening on the ground there. Hello, Lizzie. Thank you for joining us under what are sure to be stressful circumstances. Tell us, first of all, where are you exactly at this moment in time?
Hi, at the moment I'm in the Rixos hotel, which is where the foreign journalists are based in the capital. It's the media centre in the capital, sorry, the foreign media centre in the capital, essentially. We're unable to leave the hotel right now because obviously the situation outside is not yet safe. And I've also heard that there's been intense bombing of the city. So clearly, there's been a lot of bloodshed tonight. The last time we heard, which was a few hours ago, the death toll for the day was 1,300. So surely it's risen above that. And NATO has a lot of blood on its hands today.
Now, at this point, are you being threatened in any way? Is the hotel under government control, rebel control, or do you know what control the hotel is under? How do you feel at this moment in time in terms of your threat level?
Well, in particular for myself and the other journalists who have taken a different position from the rest of the mainstream media that has been at the centre of the conspiracy of this war against Libya, and that has been a media war against Libya. So I'm sure that if the rebels do approach anywhere near the hotel, the safety of the CNN, Sky, BBC News journalists, etc., who have been doing the bidding of NATO's forces on the ground will be assured. But of course, myself and other honourable exceptions have been the very few voices that have been critical of NATO's campaign here and the racist Al-Qaeda linked forces on the ground.
Now, we are hearing that Gaddafi has turned to tribes calling for their support. Is there any chance a colonel could turn the battle against the rebels and NATO at this point?
Well, it's incredible, really, that the Libyan army has withstood for 5 months under the intense air attack from the world's most powerful military machine. So really NATO has clearly underestimated the Libyan military. We were hearing at the beginning of the crisis that Gaddafi would be gone within days. That obviously hasn't happened. He's still very much fighting. So all I can say is I definitely would not underestimate the Libyan army. They do have the mass support, as we have seen with the million marches in Green Square and across the country. So despite obviously the sheer might of NATO and the indiscriminate attacks on Libya targeted, they really have no morals or respectable rules of engagement, if you like, as we have seen in the massacre of 85 people in Zlitan, which the majority of whom were children, as we have seen with the massive death toll, civilian death toll in Libya.
Now, we're hearing right now that rebels are in control of the Libyan state TV. Do you have Access TV? Do you have any information on that at this point in time?
At this very moment, I don't have any information on the status with Libyan television. I did hear that it had been bombed. As we know, it has been a target for NATO. So, yet again, if that is the case, then it's just another example of how NATO is determined to destroy this country by really any means possible. Of course, the Libyan media has been the only source of alternative information for the Libyan people. The foreign media, mainly Al Jazeera and the Western press, with the honourable exception really of Russia Today, has been really a source of confusion for the Libyan people. So Libyan state television has been a vital tool for them to really have some clarity about what is happening in their country. So if it is the case that it has gone over to the rebels, then this is obviously a worrying development, but I'm sure that the Libyan people will find a way to overcome and find a way to keep communicating with each other to have clarity about what is happening on the ground, and that's of course very important.
Now, you had mentioned that you are a little bit concerned that you and other journalists who may have taken a different stance than what you have said is the main Western media, that you're concerned for your safety. This seems is kind of support that Gaddafi's resistance is failing. Can you confirm rebel claims that they are in control of most of the city?
No, I can't confirm that at all because, as I said, I'm not able to currently see what is happening in the streets. All I would say really is that, you know, if that is the case, then so be it. But we should be very vigilant about believing anything that the rebels say, as we know they have made many claims throughout the duration of this crisis, which have been proven to be false, despite the fact that they have been taken so seriously that they created the pretext for this war. That includes the very severe claim that the people of Tripoli were under air attack by their own government, which Russian satellites later proved to be false. It includes the claim that the Libyan government was hiring mercenaries from elsewhere across Africa, which also proved to be false, despite the fact that it led to the mass lynching of black people.
Lizzie, unfortunately, we seem to be running out of time, but thank you for taking some time under very stressful conditions to join us at this moment in time, live from the Libyan capital. That was independent journalist Lizzie Phelan. Again, thanks for joining us. We'll keep you updated as more information becomes available. Now, journalist Mahdi Nazemroaya also talked to us earlier from central Tripoli, where much of the international press is based. He told RT the situation on the ground is very dangerous and that they are surrounded by rebel gunmen where they are.
There's snipers around the hotel and they shot us. I was actually shot at when I was on the roof putting a sign saying press, so they wouldn't attack us, you know. And there's Libyans of black skin here who are afraid that they might be slaughtered too. It's not just us, you know. The news would make it sound like the regime has collapsed. I don't think the regime has collapsed. I do think the hotel situation is dire, though. When there's a lot of people, young people out there fighting, you know, children, young people under the age of 16 picked up guns. You know, I've seen them. They walk through the hotel. These young men are going to die for what? For some people to make money. It's a very dire situation, and right now we're all around here. They've moved out a little. This place was packed. I brought some dessert from the kitchen upstairs for everybody so we could stay the night or eat, and that's basically it.
NATO Secretary General Anders Fogh Rasmussen has released a statement on the situation in Tripoli, saying that the Libyan people should be spared further bloodshed. RT's Guyana Chichikan has more from Washington.
Washington, a key player in this battle for Tripoli, that's for sure, was saying that Gaddafi's days are counted and that they are in close contact with the rebels. We do know at this point that NATO has been doing the heavy work attacking Tripoli. We're talking about some 7,500 strikes within some 5 to 6 months. And here's what NATO Secretary General said: Gaddafi's regime is clearly crumbling. And here's a quote here: the sooner Colonel Gaddafi realizes that he cannot win the battle against his own people, the better, so that the Libyan people can be spared further bloodshed and suffering. Well, the whole of the international community has been united, saying that Gaddafi has no place in Libya's future and that he must step down. And that was a view shared by all UN Security Council members, including Russia. But the means by which NATO has been accomplishing the goal of ousting Gaddafi have seen many violations of the UN resolution from 6 months ago that authorized the military intervention. The resolution was designed to protect civilians, but many innocent civilians have been killed by NATO strikes within those 6 months. The funneling of weapons to Libyan rebels has also been done in clear violation of the arms embargo that was imposed on Libya. Western powers clearly took sides in the civil war, basically disregarding a whole part of the population in Libya that was against the military intervention in the first place. Well, in light of all those violations that have taken place, it was very unlikely that the UN Security Council would have adopted yet another resolution on Libya come September. And September is when the previous resolution runs out. So it was very crucial. It was crucial for NATO and the rebels to carry out the operation before the resolution runs out. The fight for who's going to be in charge of Libya is no surprising considering what's at stake. And let's not forget, we're talking about a nation that has the richest oil reserves in Africa.
RT's Gana Chichikan reporting there from Washington. Now for some reaction coming from London. Here's RT correspondent Laura Emmett.
Well, we have heard a reaction from Downing Street quite late on Sunday evening, and it wasn't a surprising reaction, I'll be honest with you. They released a statement saying that the end is near for Gaddafi, that he's committed some appalling crimes against his own people, and he must now go to avoid further suffering for his people. That's the call that they've been repeating over a series of months now, that Gaddafi must go. And the background to all this is just less than 2 weeks ago, the embassy, the Libyan embassy in London, was in fact handed over to and reopened by representatives of the Transitional Council. So the Gaddafi regime, people who were there have now gone back to Libya, and it's been taken over by the Transitional Council. We've seen rebel forces approaching Tripoli, both from the east and from the west, and of course all the time backed by these NATO airstrikes, which have been heavily supported by London and by Downing Street. And the result of that is that we are hearing reports that we don't know now where Gaddafi is, but 3 of his sons, reportedly including Saif al-Islam, have been captured, and the rebels say that they're holding them in a safe place, ready to hand them over to the relevant authorities. Now, the view generally on the ground, and I have to say that the Libyan conflict has rather fallen out of the news over the last few weeks, as things tend to do here, a very short news cycle, and we've had a lot of our own stuff going on here in the UK. But people are saying now that this might be the end game, but they're not thinking that it's the end quite yet. Military experts and analysts are coming out and saying that these final kilometres, these final few streets that the rebels have to take if they are going to gain control of Tripoli will not be easy at all. We're looking at urban terrain, which offers advantages to the defenders. The defenders can then take over residential buildings, mosques, any kind of high point. They will be taking advantage of that and using it to defend the city. And of course, in terms of NATO and these incredibly numerous airstrikes that they've been launching, it's much harder to target airstrikes when you're in such a built-up urban kind of residential area. And of course, what is going to be left behind when this key battle for Tripoli is over? Whoever comes out on top, it's expected that being targeted both by the rebels and by NATO, and the rebels in NATO and by Gaddafi's forces will be key oil and transport infrastructure, which are of course essential for people carrying on their normal everyday lives.
President Sarkozy of France, as well as the German government, are again calling on Gaddafi to step down in the face of the recent gains by the rebels. RT's Daniel Bushell is in Paris with the latest.
President Sarkozy called on Gaddafi to immediately give up what power he has left, to order his forces to cease fire, and to give way to what Sarkozy called the legitimate Libyan authorities, as, quote, the outcome of the rebel victory is no longer in doubt. But the French leader added he fully supports the rebels. He called this a decisive moment and hailed the Libyan people who support them, reiterating France's backing for the rebel provisional council. Germany has called on Gaddafi to step down quickly. Defense experts here fear France will now use military force in the capital, putting civilian lives at risk, and that it will use the International Criminal Court's indictment of Gaddafi as a justification.
RT's Daniel Bushell reporting there for us from Paris, and of course we'll keep you posted as more information from Libya becomes available.